Hi, it's Jakey again. Sorry it took longer than expected to make this video. It turns out there's a lot more to attack speed than I thought. I'm going to have to break it into two parts, because while testing, I found a way to substantially break the normal attack speed limit of 80%, and I'm going to have to do a lot more tests on that for the next video. So this video will just be the basics of attack speed, haste, dual wield, and martial arts, and how they relate to TP gain. And next week we will attempt to break the game. The TP you gain per hit is initially determined by your modified delay, which is your delay after factoring in any dual wield, martial arts, or minus delay. What you see here is the table taken from BG with the addition of the 40 TP per hit minimum, which I discovered while testing. In graphical form, it looks like this. As you can see, the TP per hit generally goes up for larger delays. However, the TP per hit doesn't go up with delay enough to offset the larger delay. And when we instead look at TP per second of various delays, we find it's actually much better at low delay. This is somewhat offset by getting less TP returned every time you weapon skill, since that's based on the TP you would normally receive per hit. And lower delay weapons come with lower damage, which again significantly hurts their weapon skill damage. But it is a reason why people often looked for low delay offhands to boost their TP over time while not sacrificing much damage on their weapon skills. It is especially noticeable with 150 delay daggers, which were very popular offhands in the 75 era. To further understand attack speed, we're going to work backwards. So we're going to start with haste, which is usually the last part that's calculated. So if we look at the attack speed formula listed here, it's modified delay, which we will work out in a bit, times 1 minus the haste percent, and then it is capped at 20% of your base delay. Base delay being either your weapon delay, or in the case of hand-to-hand, 480 plus your weapon delay. Haste increases attack speed without lowering TP per hit, which makes it by far the preferred way of increasing attack speed, because all the other methods of increasing attack speed lower your modified delay, which also lowers your TP per hit. We normally talk about haste having a 80% cap, but this is simply when the attack speed reaches 20% of your base delay before any other reductions due to modified delay. Now, if we have used other methods to decrease your modified delay, you won't need a full 80 haste to reach that attack speed limit. And that's what we'll be going over in a little bit when we go through dual wield and martial arts. Back in the 75 era, there was a time before they implemented the 80% cap, and Dark did some crazy things with that. But otherwise, it was very difficult to reach the 80% cap. Today, it's kind of another matter. Haste comes in 3 forms, each of which has their own cap, and today it's basically assumed that you will be capping out 2 out of those 3 in most situations. Your magic haste and your gear haste are very easily capped. Your magic, simply trust buffs are enough, and your gear, most gear sets available come automatically with enough haste to cap. Magic haste caps at 43.75%. This usually comes in the form of haste, haste 2, marches, indie haste, Imbrava, mighty guard. Part of what made this month's ambuscade so slow was without bard or geo, it's very difficult to cap your magic haste the entire time. You can get there with mighty guard or with Imbrava, but it's hard to keep those up for the entire fight. Job ability haste. Here I actually will list out all the abilities, because they seem to be a bit less well known. Haste, which gives 10% haste for any when using two-handed weapons, as long as you are samurai or samurai sub. Haste Samba, 5% in general, but then a dancer can merit it to get it up to 10%. And Haste Samba doesn't stack with any end spells, and it costs some TP to use, so you need to be getting a benefit out of it to be worth using. Last Resort, 15 to 25% depending on merits. You can almost keep it up full time if you're a Dark Knight main, but not quite, so that's a little annoying. The Afterglowed Apocalypse Aftermath can give you 10%. And the Wyvern, once leveled up through Spirit Link, gives the Dragoon 10%. Gear Haste is capped at 25%. This is the haste you find listed on most gear these days. You will sometimes see people talk about the exact haste amounts as values out of 1024, but as you can't just see the exact value looking at the gear, the main takeaway from this is that due to rounding, you may very well need 26% haste to actually get the full 25% you want. Some jobs like Dragoon and Dark Knight can get large amounts of job ability haste, which allow them to get away with going with less than capped gear haste in many cases, assuming they are capped in the magic haste area as well. Here you see a plot of attack rounds over time based on haste, and as you can see, you get exponential growth right up until you reach 80% haste, and then it hits the cap and it just stays there at 5 times your normal attack speed. Since haste doesn't change your TP per hit, this graph is also proportional to your TP gain, assuming no other sources of delay reduction. Additionally, you will boost your white damage or non-weapon skill damage similarly as well. Now the problem is, most jobs don't have enough job ability haste to actually get to 80% haste naturally. You get the 43.75% magic haste and the 25% gear haste, which leaves you at 68.75% haste. But there's exponential growth. You really want to get to the full 80% if you can. Now, if you're using a two-handed weapon, no problem, just sub samurai, use Hasso, you're at 78.75%, and if you've got any other job ability haste, you're going to be over cap. If you don't, you're close enough that it's not really worth doing anything more. Other jobs can sub ninja or dancer for dual wield to increase their attack speed, but dual wield comes with the downside of lowering your TP per hit. Still, this is often offset by getting stats in the offhand, and as I'm going to go through in a little bit, it's still worth capping out your attack speed through dual wield if you must. To find dual wield attack speed, first you want to calculate your base delay. This will go towards the 80% cap down the line, and is simply the addition of the delays of both weapons. Then to find your modified delay per hand, which will then be used to find your TP gained for each hand. With dual wield, they will always generate the same TP in both hands. You take the base delay, divide it by 2, and then you multiply it by 1 minus the dual wield percent you have, and any other delay reduction. The delay reduction comes purely from Blitzer's roll. Finally, to calculate the attack speed, you take your modified delay per hand, multiply by 2, because there's 2 of them, and then multiply by 1 minus your haste. You subject that to the delay cap, looking at your base delay. You might have broken the cap already from dual wield before calculating haste. You might get there through haste. Doesn't matter. If you've reached your 80% attack speed cap, you'll get stopped here. Here's a guide from BG on how much dual wield you need to cap your attack speed for various amounts of dual wield traits that you can have. Basically, you just want to reach 36 total dual wield if you're not using any additional job ability haste, and if you're subbing dancers so you can get 5 more job ability haste, then you want to reach 24. Here's a plot I made showing the TP over time based on how much haste and dual wield you have available. So the x-axis is increasing dual wield. The different lines are for different amounts of haste you have available. And then TP over time is the y-axis. So if we were to follow the orange line, that is the 78.75% haste, representing 10% job ability haste, capped magic and gear haste. You see that it initially goes up slightly as you increase dual wield before it caps at 6 dual wield, and then the TP over time trends downwards as you continue to add dual wield. Now, slight problem here, the lowest amount of dual wield you can have while still dual wielding is 10, and if you want to have a fully leveled sub job, you need at least 15. So if you have 78.75% haste, you're actually better off not dual wielding from a TP perspective. Now, if your offhand provides a massive boost to your stats or a lot more double attack or something, it may still be worth dual wielding, but you're having to overcome that loss in TP per hit from having significantly more dual wield than you actually need. Notably, this is a situation that Dancer main job runs into, because they actually start off with 35 dual wield, but if they merit haste samba, they can get to 78.75% haste. So I think especially if you don't have very many good offhand weapons currently available to you as a Dancer main, you should seriously consider simply single wielding and meriting haste samba. Something else you should notice in this graph is it's very bumpy. That's because the TP per hit is being floored constantly. So you might increase your dual wield without actually decreasing your TP per hit. Depends on each individual point of dual wield, whether it's gaining, and on the delay of the weapons you're currently using. So if I were to run this simulation again, but with slightly different delay on the weapons, well, it'll trend the same. The individual bumps will be slightly different. This is where using a properly updated DPS spreadsheet can come in handy. Going through the other lines here, the dark blue is for 5% job ability haste, so you're reaching 73.75% haste, and there you cap out 24 dual wield. And the light blue line is for no job ability haste and just capped gear and magic haste, and there again you cap out at 36%. And then the red line is if you only have gear haste, which these days is a very rare situation, but it does come up once in a while. And then you can basically just keep adding as much dual wield as you want, because by the time you cap out your attack speed, you've also capped out your TP per hit, so it doesn't matter at that point. Something else I want to point out here is how all the lines, once they reach the attack speed cap, they end up right on top of each other. This is because at the attack speed cap, for any given amount of dual wield, they're generating the same amount of TP per hit, and they're swinging at the same speed because they're at the attack speed cap. Finally, I hope you all notice that the higher haste builds are capable of much faster TP gain than the low haste builds, provided that you don't stack too much dual wield. Now to look at martial arts. I find the BG guide on martial arts very unintuitive, especially when you're worried about the attack speed cap. So I think the best way to think about martial arts is, first we want to find the base attack speed, which is used for your attack speed cap later on, is simply 480 plus the weapon delay. The modified delay for each fist is your base attack speed minus the martial arts divided by 2 because there's 2 fists, and then multiplied by 1 minus your delay reduction percent, which again is basically just from Blitzer's roll. The attack speed then is the modified delay per fist times 2, because you swing with both of them, times 1 minus your haste percent, subject to the normal 80% cap, which again was calculated before martial arts. Here we assume capped gear and magic haste, so you're at 68.75% haste, and we've varied your martial arts total along the x-axis and a TP over time calculation along the y-axis. And the different lines represent different weapons, because the way martial arts works, if you have a larger delay weapon, you can stack more martial arts before you hit the cap. Whereas if you have a shorter delay weapon, you might already be at the cap. Now, monk starts, once you're master, at 210 martial arts, which is about in the middle of this graph. At this point, God Hands can still add 13 more martial arts to reach the cap. However, you'll find that you're actually better off with a little less than that. 7 martial arts, it actually peaks slightly higher. The Relic Hand to Hand actually peaks at 211 martial arts, which means you want 1 martial arts, which as far as I can tell there isn't really a worthwhile way to get. And the Empyrean Hand to Hand actually capped out at 201, so you're 9 over cap, and you've already lost 1 TP per hit that you didn't really want to, just because they gave you too much martial arts to begin with. As far as gearing goes, this means if you're using God Hands, you might want to consider a Mache earring +1. Anything else, you're generally avoiding martial arts wherever possible. You know, obviously the Empyrean body is still worth using for its massive crit damage bonus. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and check in next week to find out how to break the attack speed limit.